everybody. It's been a while, but we are back to reclaiming America. I'm Dan, and my good buddy, good friend, fellow co-host, the OG, as he's known, Mr. Bill Moore, is here with me. How are you, Mr. Bill?
I am geared up for this new year because things are going to change one way or the other. But then we're going to make sure we try to make it change the right way.
Well, good. Slide over to your right so the people can see you. There you are, my friend. So,
Okay.
we've been off for about a month, give or take. Basically, we needed a little bit of a break, as we all do. And you were very busy throughout the month of December with some stuff. And we took the holidays off. But now we're back, rested, raring to go. And there might be a few things coming up in the next few months that we might want to be talking about.
Unfortunately, the idiots didn't take any time off.
Oh, good God. It's like, not stop. I thought over the holidays things might slow down a little. And if anything, they ramped up.
Yeah.
To the point I was like, come on already. And you know what? We're going to look back in 6 months and think this is the quiet time. That's the problem.
It scares me. You might be right.
So would you like to start off with the conversation?
Just start with the Middle East, since that's the powder keg that could ignite the entire world.
That's some scary shit going on over there. So
Any better, they call ceasefires, and as soon as they get a ceasefire, they break it. And then as soon as the Israeli fire back, we have the idiots on the other side screaming that they're doing genocide, when in fact the facts are the opposite.
And then add to it that more and more missiles are being fired at various ships, our ships, merchant ships.
100 missiles have come at our ships. Now we've taken them all down or whatever else. But the point is, what are we doing about it? Now, the other thing that just came out today was we actually killed a leader in Iraq. So we're actually firing into Iraq now.
So it's an undeclared war, basically. It seems to be frogs in a pot. We've talked about that before going on with the escalation of this, but the day's coming when it's really going to explode. I really believe that.
But don't worry, President Biden has it all under control. The man who can't figure out what ice cream he likes.
Oh yeah, that was that. Oh, never mind. I'm not going to touch that one.
I think I figured out, based on how he runs the country, which his ice cream is. It's called Rocky Road.
Well played, sir. Golf clap on that one. That was a very good one. Usually you're weak, but I'll give you that one.
Weak?
You're kind of like the Cowboys. Every once in a while you get one. So, yes. So, looking at the Israel-Hamas and all that, what scares me more than anything else, because I've been hanging out on Twitter a lot in the last few weeks because I was sick for part of the last couple of weeks. And when you're sick, you got time. And so unfortunately or fortunately, I was on Twitter a lot. It is scary how, for lack of a better term, stupid people are, especially the younger college age kids. They literally don't believe in the Holocaust in many cases. I thought we were past that. There's always been those Holocaust deniers. I thought we were well past that. But I saw somebody was doing a poll, and something like 25% of college-age students don't even know that it happened or don't believe it happened. How can that be in 2024 as we are now? And then they take from that.
Misinformation.
Is it misinformation or is it just
misinformation?
Blind stupidity? I mean,
you can't fix stupid.
No, you can't. And it's sad. And I've talked about it before. I grew up in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood. My two best friends growing up, both parents are survivors of the Holocaust, or were. They've all passed on. And to hear something like some 22-year-old marching down the street with the Palestinian and, by the way, the LGBT flag together, because they wouldn't be doing that. Yeah, they wouldn't be doing that over in Gaza, trust me. And saying, well, there was never a Holocaust. I was appalled by that. And you probably think I should blame that person, and to a certain extent I do, but to your point, it's also the lack of education that's going on.
Yeah, well, again, and I don't know I think we talked about this the last time. I was working with John Dross and on critical information. Did we do that?
I don't remember, to be honest
Okay.
with you. We may have, we may not have. I don't know.
John Ross is a friend of mine who is a physicist, lives up in the New Bern area, and he's been working and doing. He's gone into education recently, and what's he's found fascinating. 49 states in this country did away in the last 10 or 20 years with the scientific method. Can you believe it? The scientific method.
I mean, well, no. Can I believe it? Yes, I do believe it because we're seeing the results of that.
Well, it gets better because then he
Oh,
went
no.
into he took him a month with DPI, Department of Public Instruction in North Carolina, to get it reinstated in our schools this year. So they've actually started teaching the scientific method. Then he went and read about 500 pages of their documents at a DPI about what's curriculum supposed to be taught, and nowhere in that curriculum do they teach critical thinking, and that's where the problem is.
I agree with you there. I mean, again, looking at Twitter and all that, critical thinking no longer exists. And when you try and interject it into conversations, oh man, I mean, of course they resort to you're just a boomer, you don't know what you're talking about. That's their default fallback.
You know, guy.
Yeah, or old guy or white guy. Because
Yeah.
I was jumping in on a few conversations here and there, going, for example, there was a Holocaust, 6 million Jews died. Maybe we want to take that into account and look at why Israel is acting the way they are, and et cetera, et cetera. And you don't know what you're talking about. You're just an old boomer or bald. They love to point out I'm bald. Apparently, to the younger generations, if you don't have hair, you lose your brain cells too. That's right down the middle of the plate. Run with it. Swing.
Does that mean virtue I'm brighter?
Come on, I teed that one up for you.
I'm going to go to you because this is still the holidays and I'm being nice.
Oh, okay. Um, but yeah, I mean, as we go
That's
through the year, I think we're going to
Christmas is
see.
this weekend, you know.
What's that?
Little Christmas is this weekend.
Is it? I see. I don't. Yeah, that's that
The,
religious stuff. I don't do
the,
that.
the Orthodox version of Easter, of Christmas.
I'm a
So it
liber-
doesn't this weekend. And I keep track of it because it's to be my daughter's birthday.
Ah, there you go.
So I can always say it's on top of that one. So, but anyway, we are going back to the Middle East. It's not getting any better. And thanks to the leadership or lack of same out of this country, it's only going to get worse. You have there's some even reports out there that the Saudis are actually got people thinking about another attack on us. How true that is, I don't know. But I know that they've been sauntering up to the Chinese. Even the Russians are running in different directions. This new axis of evil, which is the Chinese, Russian, Iranian, and North Korean group, is something to be dealt with. And we're not. We're running from them, and we're sending a message of weakness, and that's going to cause issues, and it's really going to cause more deaths than necessary.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you brought up. I was thinking about this myself while we were away on our break, which is basically we're at where England was with Hitler in 1938-ish, right? Chamberlain giving in to everything, Biden's giving in to everything.
I promise they don't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's we've talked about it before. I believe we will be at war. They may not call it that sometime this year, and based on what we're seeing now, it might be a fair argument to say we already are. We just don't know it.
The history of not going to war, the Korean War was actually a police action.
Yeah, I love how they label things to try and avoid it. And oh, by the way, avoid having to have Congress approve it.
Right.
It's you see Biden shipping off billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, to Israel. God knows what else is being funneled in other places. And I think it's not if, it's when, as we've talked about before. And unfortunately, when it happens, this one's going to be pretty serious. Not to say that World War One or two or Vietnam or any of them weren't.
No,
This
it's
one,
going to be quick.
it's going to be what?
It's going to be quick.
Oh, the way the nature of warfare is now, everybody's going to be firing off their missiles in the first 3 to 7 days, and then it's going to be a lull because nobody's going to have anything to fight with. But
But that's where the military-industrial complex will kick right in
and
and
that
sell the nearest bidder.
and that's what it's all about. You look at some of the current presidential candidates. one Nikki Haley is so embedded with that complex and the donate. Somebody was posting the amount of donations that Raytheon and General Dynamics have made to her campaign. Gee, is it any wonder she's saying the things she's saying? Um,
Yeah,
that's
it's also interesting again, and we talked about this before, how the shift has happened where going back just, 10, 20 years ago, the Republicans were accused of being the leaders of the military industrial complex, and the Democrats were always the common man. And we switched sides, and there's no argument there.
I agree and I disagree a little bit with you. I agree that the pro-war, if you will, has switched sides, but I also think the Republicans haven't changed their spots as much as people think. I think there's a lot of them that are as embedded with the military industrial complex as ever.
Both sides under the tent.
I think it's a uniparty with regard to that. Now, are there exceptions? I do think there are some Republicans. The big one being Trump. Trump is about as anti-war as any candidate out there. Vivek would be another one. He's very anti-war. But you look at Haley, you look at Christie, DeSantis. I
A man, that can take the defeat out of the jaws of victory because he was on a roll and he's run such a campaign. It's sad.
I mean, you know as well as anyone, I was one of his biggest supporters. I wanted him to be president, and wow, mea culpa on this one. Boy, was I wrong. And every time he makes a mistake, he then tries to double down and make it worse. I mean, how sad. I mean, I think, as a someone running the government in general, I think he actually would be very good. Florida being the obvious proof of that. But he ain't ever getting there now. I don't think he ever recovers from this, not in 28, 32, or 36.
And the question is, who does if it's not Trump? And that's a problem.
The one, I'm telling you, Vivek seems to be really climbing the ladder. He's not going to beat Trump.
I just don't think he can put it together. I don't think he get enough support to make it happen.
Not this year. Now he could be VP. I could see that.
That would be helpful.
I think Haley's taken herself out. Tim Scott's still a possibility. He got smart and got out. It ain't going to be DeSantis. It's certainly not going to be Christie. Vivek has got my eye a little bit. I don't know that I would support him for president, but he stokes the libertarian in me in many ways.
Yeah, but remember that number two position could become number one. And you got to put somebody there capable of doing what needs to be done, and not just because he's the lesser of two evils. I mean, where would we be without Kamala?
Oh, dear God, I just don't get me started on that. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but
We will.
It's been interesting to see, again, kind of tie back to what we started with, which was the war in the Middle East, and we probably should throw in Ukraine, Russia, that's still going on. Even though it's fallen off the radar completely.
Well, now they're complaining that they're in defensive positions because they don't have enough to be offensive with.
Yeah, and then we send them another $100 billion. And of course, you got to remember, for every $100 billion we're sending there, probably $99.9 billion comes back to the politicians that voted to send it over there. So, at least my opinion anyway.
I thought they were buying paintings from Hunter.
Yeah. And a few things on a certain island, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
The other thing, speaking tied to this, we need to just address, and I want to give some credit to the police and the law enforcement people in New York when you had the Palestinian sympathizers trying to take over JFK, and then they moved and tried to take over LaGuardia, and they were just thwarted. They without any major incidents, the police managed to just funnel them to different places where they didn't do the damage they thought they would do. So kudos to them. It could have been a disaster with holiday trips, and at the same time, their rights were protected and nobody was really injured. It's a very difficult thing to pull. So kudos to the law enforcement in the New York area. And that might have been TA or the I don't know which group runs that off the top of my head, but Transit Authority and or the police from New York City. They did a great job in protecting people's rights and protecting people's right to make a trip and fly.
Yeah, there were some areas where they had a little bit more of an effect in the country, but I think overall, across the country, wherever they tried to do this, for the most part, the police, like you said, TSA, all, whatever departments were handling it, did a very good job at it. And again, you made a key point there, which is, but we still want them to have the ability to protest.
They're right.
It's I don't agree with anything, and I don't agree with even one iota of their position. And I say that knowing that they would argue back at me saying, well, you don't care about the Palestinians. Well, Palestinians voted Hamas, and sorry. I will be.
Now, did you notice that that Hamas rejected the Egyptian offer to have re-elections and stop the battling at this point because they don't want that? They know they can't win.
They're showing their true selves over and over and over again. And you and I see it. A lot of people see it, but there's a not so unsizable portion of our populace, but worldwide, that doesn't see it,
Or doesn't want to see
or
it.
doesn't want to see it. But it's again, if someone wants to protest on their behalf, I have no problem with it. I don't agree with it, but they should have that right. But yeah, blocking airports, blocking highways, preventing ambulances from getting to hospitals. That's not peaceful demonstration.
And worse than that, not only the ambulances, they were talking, there's a very limited time that you can run a transplant for heart or whatever else. And they were blocking them too, with them flying them pieces in and going there and them in there. They could cause real damage, not just inconvenience. And it doesn't make any sense.
And it shows that their agenda means more to them than people do, which kind of throws a bucket of water on their "we care about people" we should, argument. So anyway, guess what, my friend? It's time for our first break.
Is it ready?
Already? I know. Time flies when we're having fun.
Yes. Well, we'll be right back, people. Stay tuned so we can pay a few bills and hear the word from the mount from St. Dan and Humble Bill.
I am the humble one. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
I said Humble Bill. Welcome back to Reclaiming America. It's Dan and Bill discussing all the problems in the world and the simple solutions to fix them, which are common sense, which evidently is not that common.
I would say we got to change our tagline to "not so common sense" because I think we're outnumbered about 99-1 at this point with common sense. So
I think we should get into talking about an island. Not Paradise Island, not the plane.
Fantasy Island. Although Bill, some would have called it Fantasy Island.
Yeah, but I'm not sure Mr. O'Rourke didn't run it that way.
Maybe there was a little guy in a white suit doing it. Who knows? But yeah, for those that don't know what we're talking about or have lived under a rock for the last few days, and kudos, by the way, to the judge that did this, but they've started releasing some of I call them the Epstein files. People have different names for them. And now, as we're filming this, they've only actually, I saw this morning, they've only released about 25-30% of the documents that are coming out. So there's a bunch more coming. So as we're
major dump around the 29th.
Yeah. So as we're filming this, the initial dump was done. There were some names named. There were some names that you thought were going to be named that haven't been officially named yet. But it's interesting. The first thing I want to talk about is how the media is portraying it.
Go for it.
So, it came out a couple of days ago, and my local media, national media, the first thing they all said is Trump's name is in there.
Yep.
What they're neglecting to say is if you actually go read what's in there and said about Trump, it exonerates him completely. They're leaving that part out. If you notice, their verbiage is Trump's name is in there. Our local TV station, that's verbatim what they said. And again, it just shows how they're trying to misrepresent and mislead things. Trump's name is indeed in there. But one of the testimonies that I read, basically the woman said, she was asked if he had sex with her or she had given him massages, and she unequivocally said, no, not at all, which means he wasn't involved. But they're leaving that convenient part out. It's kind of like that whole, he said both sides are great, and they left out all the other stuff he said with it.
Look where they tried to nail him in Europe in the very beginning about urinating on people in the
Yes.
bedroom. That wasn't even him.
It just goes to show that again, the media, just when you think they can't go any lower,
They
dig
open
it.
up a sub basement.
They dig a Mariana's Trench to get lower.
Oh, I like that. Really
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. But
Good.
some other prominent names that have been alleged, we have to say alleged. The big one, of course, is your boy Bubba.
Yeah,
Uh,
but to be fair, when there's a sex scandal, he's free space and bingo.
yeah, he does seem to be the center at all of them.
Well, have you looked at Hillary?
Yeah, well, it looks like she was making a few trips there.
You know,
Uh,
the fun thing I laughed at though is that what they're all saying is all this proves is that he was on the plane.
yeah.
And I'm
Well,
sure he went there and all they did was they gave him an orange juice and maybe a piece of cake. And he looked at all those other evil people doing evil things. He covered his eyes and went back and sat in the plane and said, I'm ready to go home.
there, the plane he was on just happened to have a bed in it with a bunch of young girls. I'm just saying.
He wouldn't have been,
Of course,
could
it's all alleged. We are saying that. We're not saying it's definitive. But you look at him, Prince Andrew.
Yep, I heard his name
That's
prominently. But
again alleged.
wow.
But let's be honest. A lot of these names we've already known were going to be in there. The old axiom, where there's smoke, there's fire. You know, I think there's something. It's worthy enough that it needs to be thoroughly investigated. Right? I don't want to proclaim them guilty. I don't want to proclaim them innocent. My point always with these things is we need an investigation. And the question is there going to be one? What do you think?
Uh, about as fairly done as all the Trump investigations that have been going on so far. Now, I am sure that someone will try to charge Trump with sex trafficking and possibly having sex with young women, but it will definitely not be going after anybody who's a Democrat because they don't have to stand by the rules. That's just for the peasants, Republicans, and the rest of us.
Speaking of Democrats, did you see the one name that might or might not have been on the list? One Chuck Schumer.
Chucky?
Chucky. So again, it's all it's people looking at basically it was the pilot's flight logs and the passengers. When you look at it, it looks like Schumer. I looked at it because they posted it, but again, alleged. Um,
Chuck went someplace?
I I wouldn't doubt it for a second. The point being, I don't think there's going to be an investigation now, but I'm going to throw something out at you. Something that I've kind of thought about. So we all know that they went after Trump um, various ways. You kind of talked about that. Uh, and the conjecture being they just didn't want him to be president. I'm going to throw something out at you and get your opinion on it. Do you remember under the Trump presidency how often we would see in the news or Trump announce that either the FBI or someone had busted a trafficking ring? It was frequent. To the
Yeah,
point towards the end of his presidency, it was almost a weekly thing that they were finding something.
right.
So he was destroying human trafficking, the networks. He was having under his leadership, it wasn't him, but the people under him, they were having a tremendous effect on it. Can you name one that you've heard of under the Biden administration? I looked. I haven't found one yet.
Well, yeah, Hunter's girlfriend.
My point being, could that have been part of the reason, not all of it, but a part of the reason why they wanted Trump out? Because the people that were doing it are the ones that are being alleged in these documents that have been released.
And they're the ones that wanted to get Trump and the likes and bury this thing forever. And I'm sure they're afraid if Trump does get back in, that the light is going to hit these
Oh,
documents. You know,
that
it's going to be a spotlight.
that's when I do think if Trump wins and gets in, that's when you're going to see the investigation. Now, who's going to do it? I don't know, because you certainly can't trust the FBI at this point.
No.
The FBI has, I mean, it's well known and documented. They have video, they had video, pictures, more testimony, and somehow it all got lost, Bill. Uh, they don't know what happened to it.
In some century.
Kind of like the Hunter Biden laptop that didn't exist for 2.5 years and then magically all of a sudden appeared. I'll be accused of doing conspiracy theories, but again, we're what, 49-0 on conspiracy theories now. Maybe
Well, actually, there's a problem now because we're running out of theories because they've all been proved true.
everything. But I could, I
We don't
could,
have theory.
I could definitely see that one of the reasons they wanted Trump out is he was busting up these rings. I don't know if you know this, but I was doing some research. I watched The Sound of Freedom while we were on break. I finally got to see it. A phenomenal movie. Phenomenal movie. I was mesmerized. Just looking at it from a movie sake, it was excellent. But the topic, of course, was very important and bringing light to that. One of the things that I found was that human trafficking raises more money for the cartels and the criminals than drug trafficking does.
Oh yeah.
You take a brick of cocaine across the border and sell it, it's one and done. Unfortunately, you bring a human being across, they pass them on and on and on. So it just regenerates income. I think what Trump was doing, busting up these rings, I think was affecting people's income. And, again, I'm postulating, I freely admit that, but I have a feeling that's part of it.
It makes sense, and that's what scares me because they'll never do anything about it if it makes sense.
It saddens me too, to think that however remote the possibility is that we even have the discussion, it breaks my heart because these are human
And
beings.
the sad part is we're never going to get to the truth under current conditions.
No, we're not. I do though think that if Trump gets in, that's one thing he's going to go after. He's going to get these documents out. I don't care what the FBI says. Somebody's got these documents.
You know what scares me with Trump? Dan Bongino has said it multiple times. There's so many people fearful of what he can do and what he will do.
I know.
You talk about someone who's in danger of being taken out,
I know where you're going to go.
and I'm deadly afraid that that's where it's going to be.
Do you think? I think it'll happen before the election. To be honest with you.
I would think either during the campaign or in that chase between November and actually being sworn in.
Yeah. I just.
And he goes into the people. He walks down and he doesn't care. And he's a people's person. And that just puts him out there. And there's just so many people out there with money and issues that I'm probably more fearful of him than any other person that I can remember in history that were just a target.
And I'll throw this out there because I believe in the Secret Service. I think they're genuinely good and they do their job excellently. But I'm also going to point out that Secret Service protects many of those people that were on those planes to Epstein's Island. So
Yeah.
they had to have been there.
Well, that's the role of the Secret Service. You can't
tell,
now you don't know whether they participated or not, or they just were forced to sit in the corner and watch.
So who's to say that someone might not go to an agent that was on that island and say, we're going to out that you were on that island if you don't let someone get near Trump? Just saying. Again, pure speculation, conspiracy theory. I freely admit it. Okay.
I agree with you, but that's more than anything else. The other thing that bothered me, I mean, you talk a little bit about Trump and how they go after him. You notice the family picture he put up for Christmas and that Melania was not there?
I did not see that.
And right away, the press was running. They're breaking up. She's leaving him. Barron was there. Everybody was there. She's leaving him. It's all over. Then the facts came out. Her mother in Europe is deathly ill and in the hospital. She wants to be with her mother. And Trump finally said that a day or two later. But right away,
they look for any little thing that they can
everything
use.
else going on.
You know,
Anything.
It's this whole scenario with Epstein. It again, it goes back to these are human beings that were affected by this, and I think a lot of people are going to lose sight of that.
And what's even scarier than you, these are kids.
It's when, yeah, exactly.
I hate to say it, it's worse for a kid than an adult. I hate to put it that way. I'm not minimizing an
No,
adult.
I get what you're saying. I totally agree. Prison justice would say the same thing. I mean, the worst of our society that are in prison for murder and all these other things, they agree with what you said. If you did something to an adult, it's bad, blah, blah, blah. You do it to a child, they will literally find you and kill you,
Your life expectancy of a pedophile is not going to be
Yeah.
there. That's it anymore.
But I just fear that because this is going to become an election hot topic, both ways, right? One other thing, I don't know if you saw this. Again, I've been having fun with it in the sense that I'm out on various places on the internet, Twitter, YouTube, and all of them. And I like seeing all the different theories. But one theory, and I don't agree with it, but they were finding one section in one of the documents, and they're postulating it's redacted. It's one of the ones that's redacted based on the length of it and the way it kind of leads into and comes out of it, that it was saying Vice President Joe Biden. Time will tell on that because it will eventually come out. But can you imagine if he's found to have gone there? Wow.
I would be surprised if he's not getting a kickback someplace from it.
Wow. Time will tell on all of this stuff. I want people to keep in mind when we're discussing it, whether it's you or I or the media or anything, let's remember the victims. And the horror that they went through then and are going through now and are going to be reliving it as this all comes out.
And you and I both agree that you're innocent until proven guilty.
But
as a token, we have to. All we want is the truth.
I want an investigation. That's all I'm asking for. And who's going to do that is the question. I don't trust the FBI to do it. I don't trust Congress to do it at this point.
Trust right now.
Too many Congress people on both sides of the aisle potentially were on these planes. And high level. I mean, we talked about Schumer, the ex-leader of the Senate before McConnell, on the Republican side. What was it?
Ryan? No, he was
no, the one before that, or not? Mitchell.
Yeah,
Mitchell it's potentially in there. It's both sides of the aisle. It's the question I have is if this is true. Let's assume for the sake of argument, a lot of these actually did go there. How do these people get in power the way they are? How that many of them? That's a scary thought, Bill.
Yeah, but remember the oldest line: "Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts even more."
You're born this way, though. If you're, I mean, to me, I can't fathom wanting to engage in activities. I'm trying to be polite with it with a child. It is so vile and disgusting to me. I can't wrap my head around someone wanting to do that. But I kind of believe that's something it's an innate in you, right? I don't know. I can't even begin to guess that. But I don't think you learned that. I think you either are that way or you're not. You're evil. That's evil. And that's an innate thing in a person.
Well, evil does exist. And the trouble is we deny that its existence.
Yeah.
And that's
but it seems these evil people are the ones that are in charge. How the hell did that get to be the case? And on that note, my friend, guess what? It's time for another break. I mean, what a downer to go into a break on, right? Why don't you take us to break, my friend?
All right, people, this is Reclaiming America. We'll be back soon, but first we got to pay a couple of bills, and we have more things to talk about, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Reclaiming America with the show going very quickly and covering a lot of good stuff. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about the next major elections in most of our areas called primaries.
Elections? There's elections coming up?
Sure.
I did not know that. So
Carolina, March 5th is the formal election day, and then for primary, and then February 15th starts early voting, which I still think is a shame.
And as we're filming this, Iowa's about 2 weeks away. So they're the initial, and then what do you got? South Carolina, New Hampshire, shortly thereafter. I guess we probably would be remiss if we didn't talk briefly, at least, about the attempts to keep Trump off the ballot. Um, it was very interesting. The one that just it makes me laugh was Maine, and I laugh. It's a serious thing, but I laugh about it because any reasonable person that looks how one person in an entire state determined for everyone whether or not they could vote for Trump. How ludicrous is that? Yet there's some that are defending her,
Well, they're
but
always going to defend it because it's anti-Trump.
I
You know,
just that's an
Ballot,
insurrection to me.
California.
California's looking to do it. New York's looking to do
No,
it.
what's interesting there is the lieutenant governor started pushing. He wants to ban Trump from the ballot, and the governor came out and says, "No, you can't do
Well,
that. We want him on the ballot."
I think the reason they did that is every time they've banned him, his popularity has gone up even more. He raises millions of dollars. This is the best thing ever for his campaign. The more states that ban him, the more likely it is he's going to win. And I think certain Democrats high level are going, yeah, this is not working out the way we thought it was going to be. It's helping their base, let's be honest, but their base is at this point, what was his last approval rating? 28% for
But
Biden?
the issue goes beyond that. If you keep telling them it's going to happen, then it doesn't happen. You turn the base off.
Yeah, and it could backfire on him. The sad part is, did you ever think in your lifetime or ever that we would be in a country where one party is actively trying to remove their opposition candidate?
Does the term banana republic
Banana
stick in?
Republic, yeah. I would I was thinking again. I did a lot of thinking over the break that we had. I would never have imagined that. Ever, I would never imagine we are where we are, and the worst part is we've only scratched the surface. It's going to get worse.
And worse and worse. And that's scary because the scariest part is if you do it to someone with that much power, what chance do you and I have?
None, or any average person. One of Trump's famous lines is, "If they'll do it to me, they'll do it to you." If they can remove him from the ballot, obviously you and I aren't running, but what are they capable of doing to us? Because that's about as serious an infraction as there is. That is, to me, is true insurrection.
You're talking about abuse of power. And that's
It
exactly.
truly is an abuse of power. And if they're capable and willing to do that, doing something to us like freezing our bank accounts or whatever, that's chump change compared to that.
January 6 people and not letting them having their day in court. I mean, that's a reality. Yeah, but nobody's claiming because again, it's people like you and I, and we don't count.
No. Yeah, we're what, 3 years out from January 6th now? And there's still people that are sitting in solitary, haven't had trials, nothing. But my argument too is
The gentleman who killed himself over that, you know,
yeah,
and then they turned out that the prosecutor told the survivors of the family, well, he wasn't going to use that anyway. He couldn't get past it. So this, it just drives you crazy with what they're doing. Yet, what's going on with the Palestinians? What's going on with BLM? Should Trump win, you want to talk about an insurrection?
oh, it'll be the end of the country. We've talked about that before. And a key point, by the way, to make on insurrection in regards whether it's Trump on the ballot or the people that are sitting in jail from January 6th, no one has been convicted of an insurrection. Not one person, including Trump. Trump hasn't even been charged. But yet, some Yahoo in Maine decided he's guilty. And a court in Missouri decided he was guilty. Or I'm sorry, Colorado. Unbelievable. They throw that word out there, insurrection, all the time. There hasn't been one person found guilty of insurrection.
I
Not
don't
one.
recall a bloodless or a weaponless insurrection.
It they're overthrowing the government. That's really what it is.
But you don't do that walking in there with a smile on and getting escorted around by the people guarding you.
No, I'm saying the people that are charging these are overthrowing our government. Yeah, by exactly that. I mean, more and more video has come out where they welcome them in. Now, I'll be the first to say those ones that were breaking windows and doing all that, I actually do believe they should be charged.
And should pay something appropriate for what they did.
But hello, a couple of weeks back, you had a Palestinian group do essentially the same thing. You never heard about it. There's
No,
video of them storming the Capitol.
cities put to torch and cars put to torch.
Where's the charges?
And you know what I also laugh at, and this is a little bit side tacked on it, but France announced that their New Year's Eve was relatively quiet. They only had 750 cars burned.
Yeah. And, well, did you see where the French farmers dumped piles of manure on the government building? Yeah, if we did that, you and I did that here, of course, we'd be charged with insurrection. Well, trespassing is that's what they're getting most of these people on, is trespassing charge.
And that would be legitimate.
But and it would, but I would love to see a bunch of dump trucks run up to DC and just dump.
The other thing was they're just finding people that were there, not necessarily at the insurrection, but if you happen to be in town for whatever reason, they tracked you and they've dragged you into it.
Well, the leader of the Proud Boys wasn't even in town. They've charged him, and he's going to prison for decades. And now I'm not defending him personally. I can't stand the guy. But they're a white supremacist group, yet every leader in there happens to be Hispanic. They had a black person on their thing. He's been charged. They weren't even there. They weren't physically there. But yet they've been charged and are going to prison because they supposedly incited it. But yet the BLM leader, who actually is proven to have been there and encouraged people to do things, he did get charged and he was found guilty, but he essentially got a slap on the wrist compared to someone that wasn't there who happened to be a quote-unquote Hispanic white supremacist. I haven't figured that one out yet. You know,
stay tuned. You'll never know what's going to happen because we don't know either.
It's just
when we think we get to the bottom of the barrel, someone opens up a whole brand new subfloor.
And again, you know, Trump wins. I hope he day one orders everything released, everything, and I think he will actually.
And I think he's going to turn around and he'll pardon a good slice of those people too.
Interesting point. What do you think? You imagine the reaction if he did that? Oh my!
People are going to love him, and if people are going to hate him.
The ones that are hating him are going to hate him anyway. But
hate him now anyway.
Yeah, that we throw it out. Civil war. A year from now, mark my words. What has been a cold civil war will become warm, if not outright hot.
January 20th is the swear-in date.
I don't even think once he wins, if he wins, I should say if he wins.
We have to assume he's got the primary locked in.
Well, I mean, let's look who's running against him. Yeah, I mean, and we were talking off air. Vivek Ramaswamy. I hope I say that. I just butcher the poor man's name every time. He's got my attention, Bill. I have to say, he's Trump light. He is the way I put him.
Polished Trump.
But I have a lot of respect for him in the sense that, for example, when Colorado banned him and Maine banned Trump from the ballot, I'm off the ballot too. Whereas opposed to my ex-boy, DeSantis, Haley, Christie, nope, we're good. We're going to stay on the ballot.
And he doesn't belong there anyway.
I mean, you know, they showed their true colors.
Now, in the short time we have left, who's the VP for Trump if he gets the nomination?
If we speculated on this, Haley's out at this point, I think.
I think
Tim Scott, I think is my leading candidate now, but I'm going to throw out Ramaswamy.
I was thinking that he might be there. Actually, I'm actually leaning towards someone who you mentioned a while ago who you're madly in love with.
I would kill for that. Tulsi, my girl.
I think that Tulsi just might fit for his needs.
You know, and setting aside a lot of things, I mean, she checks a ton of boxes, right? She's female. Military, person of color, because she's half Samoan. Very powerful statement that she used to be a Democrat. She was actually considered far left 10 years ago figured
Yes.
that one out, Bill. uh,
Goodbye.
a lot of people didn't like her because of her stance on guns. She's reversed a lot of that. She hasn't come all the way over, but she's seen the light for like, in my opinion, that's who it should be. And I'm not saying that because, all the stuff you alluded to a minute ago. But I do think in the sense that as far as the center, right, the middle would make up the majority of the electorate. I think that's the most palatable choice. And the one that I think could energize them if Trump is running more than anyone. You got to remember, Trump's got to overcome the people that just don't like him personally.
You know what? She would bring in the Rock to vote for her.
God forbid if anything happened to Trump, I would have no problem with her running this country.
I agree.
And Tim Scott, by the way, I think would be excellent. Ramaswamy got my attention. He's like I said, Trump light. My worry with him is it bluster? Is he saying the words to try and get attention? What would he actually do?
I actually think that somewhere down this line, you're going to be checking that second box for the second seat has got to be minority, female, and/or multiple checks. I just think it works this time.
Ramaswamy fits a lot of that.
Yes, and so does Kelsey.
And so does Tulsi, and so does Tim Scott. I think it's one of those three at this point. I don't see anyone else coming off the bench. Trump's a foregone conclusion. He's going to be the nominee unless something happens to him. And I'm not talking about this is going to sound ridiculous, but I would love to see him be sent to prison by one of these phony cases that he's got. Can you imagine? Because he'll still win, and he'll be sitting in a prison cell running the country. How sweet would that be?
Along with his own Secret Service cards.
And then he can pardon himself. I mean, that would be like the cherry on top of how ludicrous this country has become. That Sunday, that would be the be-all, get-all. You would never top that one.
And I got one that I think I can top that. If he does get connected, I think Biden will pardon him.
Ooh. You think Biden will pardon him?
For the good of the country, end quote.
Wow. You got me thinking on that one. I don't know.
That's exactly what happened with Nixon.
Yeah, but also you remember what was Biden's big campaign promise? I'm going to unify the country. And then he released a video this week, a campaign video, basically saying that anyone who doesn't vote for him is an enemy of the country. So I don't know. I don't know if he would take that leap and pardon Trump. Good point.
But what's interesting? He is unifying the country because about everybody hates him.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, they say he's at like 38%, but the real number is in the 20s at this point. And finally, by the way, did you see that Kamala's actually doing better than him on the polls now?
That I can't believe.
That blew my mind. I was laughing at that one. She's actually jumped ahead of him. That's saying something.
Well, maybe she'll be the candidate.
Oh, God, no. God, no. On that note, my friend, we got about a minute left. I don't want to end on that. Come up with something else.
Something positive, and tell people where they can find our show again, because it's been a while.
It's been a while. So we're on Rumble. We are on YouTube. We are on Spotify. We are on Apple. We're going to be getting back on TikTok. We had some good videos going up there, but it's been a while since my friend Bill here has done a few. So I'm nagging him now to do a couple.
Now it is for the weekend. You'll get inundated by Monday.
Great, because I'm the one that has to edit them and post them. He just does them, and
they're so perfect. It takes very little to fix it.
He said it's just for fun. He sends me about a 2-minute long video, and by the time I'm done editing, it's about 16 seconds. So, that's
because he takes out all the words that are inappropriate. But I'm not
pretty well. Some of the things that'll get us banned. But anyway, make sure if you've liked what we've said to give us that thumbs up, give us that like. Make sure you share this. It's an important year coming up, and we're going to be jumping on and sharing our thoughts and hopefully bringing some common sense to the craziness that's to come.
Give us a suggestion what you want us to talk about.
Oh, yeah, well, you've gotten a few suggestions the last time you posted on not Twitter, on TikTok. You got a board. They told you a few places they wanted you to go, Bill. I don't know if you saw.
They threw me out.
Anyway. All right. On that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up, and we'll be back next week. And hopefully our producer, who's a little under the weather, will be joining us, and we'll have a lot to say.
She's the beauty and brains in the operation.
She's the key to the whole thing. So on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll see you next time on Reclaiming America.
Everybody.